Have you noticed that trans people are above reproach? Have you noticed that trans people are not just people, but gods? Have you noticed that whenever there's a circumstance when we could say, well, this trans person may be manipulative, that becomes regarded as anti-trans, when it's really just a comment on an individual human being manipulative or being psychopathic, exhibiting behaviors that are telltale of those. And yet we cannot have any reproach or constructive criticism of trans people. They are lauded as above. They are lauded as gods. They're lauded as saints. And that's the problem. It's not that trans people are people. And that's why we know that they have the tendency to be manipulative, because being manipulative is human nature. That's what people are. People are manipulative, people are narcissistic, people are psychopathic. There are these traits in humanity. And to deny and pretend that all trans people are gods and saints, now that is not living in reality. That is living in delusion. So when people are talking about the delusion of trans ideology, they're talking about the delusion that they're above reproach, and that we cannot simply comment on, hey, this was wrong. This individual trans person did something wrong. For instance, last week, or actually 2 weeks ago, there was a biological woman who has later transitioned, either officially transitioned or was just wanting to have people call her by he, him pronouns. Sometimes it's unclear whether someone has a non-binary identity or whether they have actually transitioned. So, all we know is that it seems as though she was trans. She became a male. So, anyway, he shot up a Nashville Christian school. She killed 3 9-year-olds and 2 60-year-olds in the school. And the media reacted to this by a focus on 2 things. That this trans shooter was probably not welcomed by a Christian family or this Christian school that she had attended for her transness, and so it reverted back to feeling sorry for her because she is the true victim here, even though she shot 9-year-olds that have nothing to do with the oppression of her gender identity. The 9-year-olds are innocents. They have nothing to do with the 60-year-olds, indeed too. So the focus was again on making the trans person above reproach, making them have a godlike status, not a human status. Because a human, we would say psychopath. We wouldn't say, oh, well, this is justified, this is rationalized. No. We need to have values that eclipse cults. We need to have values that say, somebody in this cult, somebody in our cult got a line, and I stand by the value itself, not the cult at any cost. So this happened, and so the media was having that. They either wanted to ignore it or focus on that framing, or to focus on the gun laws in general framing. And so the fact is whenever you put a group above reproach, then they're going to recognize that and realize that what they can get away with. So in some ways, it basically opens the door for those that are criminally minded and psychopathic minded. They think, well, I can do no wrong, so I might as well start doing wrong, because everyone will just rationalize and justify me as the hero of every story, instead of looking at the actions themselves as sadistic and say that was wrong. And so that's the problem with the trans situation right now. And everyone is either very quiet and terrified about it, or they reduce it to a very limited binary, which is ironic, because isn't that the problem, is that we're tired of the male-female binary? So we want it to be beyond that limited scope. Well, the biggest limitation is the binary in ideology that says all of these oppressed groups are above reproach and are always victims, and white cis males and white cis females are always the default dumb and evil oppressor. That kind of thinking is classic abusive thinking. It's classic psychopath thinking. So we need to be able to talk about it in that way. Reality says we're going to have evil people in all groups. We're going to have psychopaths everywhere, and we're going to make sure that those psychopaths don't ruin society and don't ruin civility by horrible acts of violence. So that's something we need to talk about.